How have we just gotten away with that, man? How have we just gotten away with that? That is like, wow. Ruben Amorim, you live to see another day. Because the way that first half went, the way that first 60 minutes went, I was worried for this guy, man. I was genuinely worried for Ruben Amorim's future. Because that first 60 minutes was one of the worst performances from a Man United side I've ever seen in my life. And I say that a lot. I feel like we're always talking about worst ever with United. But that's up there with the worst that we've seen from any Man United team ever. Like, that first 45 minutes is just pure domination from Everton. And the scary thing is, it was from the word go. From the minute that they were pressing the life out of Mazraoui, so much so that he almost went off injured in 5 minutes, you knew what kind of time Everton were on, and you knew what kind of time Man United were on. It was just hounds, bloodhounds in the form of Everton players, just closing us down in our own box. Not even like in possession in the middle third, at halfway line, in our own penalty box. They were closing us down into corners. They wanted it more than us. Their press was far more organized than ours. It was far more aggressive than ours. They were far better drilled than us. Quite simply, Everton players outperformed ours. David Moyes outcoached Ruben Amorim. For 45 minutes, it couldn't be more clear. We could not cope with Everton. And I'm not talking about Arsenal here. I'm not talking about Liverpool here. I'm not talking about even Bournemouth here. I'm talking about Everton, who granted have been a very good side since David Moyes came back to the club. I think they've lost one game in their last 5 or 6. But wow, the levels shown today in those first 45 minutes, like, I'm really alarmed, guys. I'm really concerned. Because I'm someone who's given a lot of, patience. I've had patience for Amorim. I've really held off too much on going strict with him. And look, I still maintain a lot of the things I'm saying. Guys, the players at this club are an absolute, joke. It's a comedy show watching some of these guys play. The goals that we can see today, right? The first one, the ball must bounce in our box and we must get a head on it about 4 or 5 different times. The opportunity to clear the ball away from danger is presented to us about 7 different times. And yet it's like a game of ping pong. It's like a game of pinball. And it just miraculously lands to the feet of Beto, who's one of the foreign players in the league. He fires it past Onana, but it's one of those goals, guys, I swear to God, you would not see it at Sunday League level. You would not see that level of defending at Sunday League level. 7 times Man United had the opportunity to just get rid of the ball, and they're flapping around with it. The second one is arguably even worse. Matthijs de Ligt, who we're going to get into him, the minute he ever gets dragged into wide possessions, either on the ball or in terms of just defending, is basically drowning. He basically drowns anytime he's kind of outside of his safety zone in the center of defense. The minute he actually has to defend wide areas, it's khalas, man. It's kamikaze. He gets dragged out to that wide position. They play it past him easily. They play a ball into the box. Maguire fails to intercept it. I think it came out to Beto. Beto gets it, shoots it at Onana. Onana, to be fair, it goes right at him. He parries it up. Onana should do a lot better with it. He parries it directly up. He's falling backwards. And the ball is coming back down. And it's coming into Maguire's zone. There's no one really around him. He has all the time with the ball dropping deep. Has the time to position his body, close out basically, take care of danger. The ball's coming down, and in comes Doucoure over the top, heads it over him. 2-0. It honestly reminded me of FIFA. I don't know if you guys have ever played FIFA, right? Where the ball is kind of in the air and you're controlling your center back, but they're not reacting the way you're basically commanding them on your controller. And you're just spamming buttons trying to get him to do something. Like, yo, square, just clear it. And he's moving lethargically or whatever, and then the opposition player just comes in and just dunks on you. That's literally what it looked like with Maguire. But it was those 3, Maguire, Onana, and de Ligt, at the scene of every single crime that happened at Man United's defense today. Those 3 played games so disgustingly bad that if Man United decided tomorrow to literally rip their contracts up in front of the entire fan base, I don't think anyone can be too mad. But let me bring it back to Amorim. That's just the goals that we conceded. Again, I understand we have really bad players. And I'm of the belief that even if you fire Amorim, this squad is a million miles off of it. We are in it for the long haul with this club, man. Honestly, we are a million miles off being a serious club. But I'm sorry. There's still certain levels that you're expected to hit at any level of Premier League football. Certain levels of professionalism and how you can prepare your team from a mental point of view and giving your team solutions with your system. And today, that first 45, I'm sorry, Amorim did not prepare his team well enough for this game. He didn't. David Moyes outprepared his team compared to Amorim with his infinitely more. We were not prepared for their press. We were not prepared for their block. We were not prepared for their set piece threat. We were not prepared in any way, shape, or form for that game. And I have to look at Ruben Amorim here. And more so than just that, the psychological effect that I'm really scared is going to seep into this team is starting to concern me about his future. Because if Amorim lasts until the end of the season, which in my opinion, there is no guarantee here. I think the way our results are going, it is very plausible that things get so bad that the board have no choice but to fire him. Because get this, guys, if he goes into next summer, we're not going to get rid of 15 players. It's not realistic. Most of the squad, unfortunately, is still going to be here. Like, yes, I would expect him to be able to get rid of guys, a few of them, bring in a few of his guys, but it's still going to be the majority of the squad. But I'm really starting to get worried now that the psychological impact that these players have now with this manager is almost like unfixable. I'm really afraid that it gets so bad that even next season, the job is now just too impossible for Amorim, even if he does get the chance to bring his players in. I'm really afraid that that happens. And don't act like that's completely out of the question, because we saw it happen with Graham Potter. Graham Potter, there's a lot of circumstances outside of just tactics that affected his situation at Chelsea. We know that. But at the end of the day, when you lose so many games and you start to lose the faith of your players that much, it is a results business. And Graham Potter eventually was axed. Whether it was fair or not, he had to basically suffer. He had to, because the results just became irredeemable. And I'm really afraid of Amorim, and I would have been extremely afraid after that first half we lost that game. The way it was going, he'd be in a similar boat. That first half performance for Man United, we had one shot. Not even a shot on target. We had one shot. And it was Manuel Ugarte from the edge of the box trying to whip it in on his right. Outside of that, we posed zero threat to Everton. Forget about shots. We didn't create chances. How can you win football games in this league if you're not even creating chances? Forget about even burying chances. Creating them. Nothing. Zilch. Nada. We're playing with two guys up front in Xerxes and Højlund, who I don't know how many times I have to tell you guys this. They are not the level of Man United, and they will never be the level of Man United. And I mean that for both of them. But for one of them, it's never been more clear than now. Rasmus Højlund. So bad, yet again. 15 games without a goal now. But forget about even without a goal. He poses no threat. His touch is horrible. He doesn't position himself well. His way to pass is awful. He got hooked today and won 0 out of 8 aerial duels. His replacement, Enchido Obi, a kid, really making his debut. I'm not going to count what he did at Spurs because he played 2 minutes, he didn't touch the ball. But his replacement, Enchido Obi, a kid, came on and won 1 out of 3. I mean, and look, Cheeto's raw. Like, I'm looking at this guy, he's raw. He's a prospect, but bro, his game is not refined whatsoever, which I get. He's very young. He's also growing into his body. I get all that. I'm not trying to get hard on the kid. But the fact is, he's extremely raw. He's extremely unready, and he's still contributing more immediately to the first team than Rasmus Højlund in about 20 minutes. It has never been more apparent than now that we have a center forward crisis at the club. The second half, he makes no substitutions, Ruben Amorim. And I'm starting to fear, is this going to be like the Spurs game, where he just sits on his hands for 90 minutes and doesn't make any subs? We needed changes, and he made none at halftime. It baffled me. In the first 15 minutes, nothing changed. Nothing changed. Of course not. It's the same players. What else is going to change? And then, out of absolutely nothing, Bruno Fernandes, Man United win a free kick. Bruno Fernandes, who, by the way, right, we're going to talk about his last 30 minutes, but let's talk about his first 60. His first 60, like most Man United players, was absolutely awful. Let's not rewrite history. But he steps up for this free kick. And like Bruno Fernandes has done so many times in his Man United career, whether he's playing well or not, whether the team's playing well or not, he is still the spark. He is still the one out of this shower of shit that can still produce a moment of quality. And the free kick was absolutely quality. It was a moment of brilliance. It was not deserved from the team. It was not well fought or well earned. It wasn't like a byproduct of great work. It was really a top level game changer, creating a moment out of absolutely nothing. And that's why Bruno Fernandes, in terms of X factor, is one of the best there is. He can just make moments out of nothing. He's done it his entire United career. And I think he's the only player on United these days who still has that air of unpredictability, that air of magic every once in a while. And I don't know what happened from there, right? We scored that free kick. Oh, I do know what happened from there. Casemiro was hooked, Bruno Fernandes was dropped deeper, and all of a sudden, the game completely changed. Now, I don't know if that's a byproduct of us scoring, just kind of punching Everton in the mouth and shocking them for a little bit, or maybe it just kind of woke us up. But from then on, to I would say about the end of the game, even though Everton had a late flurry at the end, we all of a sudden became in full control. We were the protagonists, we were pinning Everton in to their own box, into their own half. We were recovering it very well, we were pressing well, we were keeping the ball. We were threatening, we were intense, we showed aggression. And I'm just thinking to myself, why did we need to score a goal for that to happen? Why couldn't we have started like with this level of intensity from the very word go. Why not? From then on, we were in full control. Bruno Fernandes, right? The last 30 minutes, it's like, this is why for me, he's the ultimate Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde player, because he's very two-faced. Like, he's capable of playing absolutely like disgusting in the worst way possible, and then flicking a switch mid-game, and then playing absolutely disgusting in the best way possible. In that last 30 minutes, I swear to God, I'm not even trying to exaggerate here or over-exaggerate, Bruno Fernandes put in one of the best performances of the season from any player. That performance in the last 30 minutes, Bruno Fernandes went like beast mode. He turned into, I don't even know, like prime Kaka. Like, his performance was insane. I'm not even trying to overgas it right now, but he almost single-handedly dragged Man United to a win today. If we had won that game, it would have been because of Bruno. The fact we even drew it is because of Bruno. So I have to give him massive plaudits, because without him today, we would have lost that game. And it's only because of him, in my opinion, that Man United has scraped the draw from this game. I say that, no, I'm going to maintain that because it was his moments of brilliance that got us back into the game. But I want to give a special shout out to Patrick Dorgu, who I think played a very good game today. And to be honest with you, since he joined the club, I've been impressed with him. I wouldn't say he's a world beater, but I've been impressed with him. He's shown me quality. He's shown me bravery. He's shown me intent. He's shown me good athletic skill set. He's very willing to dribble his player, whips in a decent ball. I think that needs a little bit more work, but I'm impressed with Patrick Dorgu. I'm not like blown away. I'm keeping my expectations very shallow, but I'm impressed. I think he's arguably one of our best players already after 3 games. And it just makes me think like, wow, a new player has come in here and automatically looks a different class compared to the rest of them. And I don't even think he's that brilliant. What does that tell you about the rest of the squad? What does that tell you about his opposition wingback, or his opposite-sided wingback, Diogo Dalot, who continues to just be a calamity for Man United? Maybe at this point, it's because we have no one else. But how this guy, since Amorim, has played week in, week out, it's beyond me. The performance levels are staggeringly bad from Diogo Dalot. The guy has no idea what to do in the final third. He's so scared shitless every time he gets the ball in his own half. Diogo Dalot, for me, is a player that you almost have to spoon feed instructions. And maybe that's why under Ten Hag last year, he was able to make good performances, because he knew his job. Just invert when you need to, play the ball around midfield, get back in your position, defend. It's a very straightforward job. Now he has to get in the final third and be a little imaginative. He has to use his footballing IQ to get him out of situations. And he gets in the final third and his brain fogs up. It's awful from Dalot. It's awful. Garnacho as well too. I think his introduction into the team was also a spark plug for the team. I thought, again, he brought intensity. He's the only player in our team at the moment who, well, again, with Dorgu, but he's like a better dribbler than him. He's willing to pick up the ball and run at players, which we see few and far between at Man United. His decision-making was suspect at times. I wouldn't argue that. There were times where I think he should have slotted in Xerxes, or he should have slotted in Dorgu, or he should have maybe crossed it into Cheeto. But I can't fault his intensity and his intent. He brought energy to Man United that we were desperately missing from the word go. And then Joshua Xerxes, who is just like better than Højlund, much better than Højlund, but also I just don't see it with him either long term. Like, he's okay for now because we have literally nothing else. But guys, it's so frustrating watching Xerxes at times, because skill is not his issue. He's a skillful player, but he plays the game at 0.5 speed. He plays the game at 0.5 intensity. He's always a second late to make the right pass. The ball gets into him in a dangerous position. Free header, open header. And you see the one where he basically hit off Brantwaite's head and he's trying to complain to the referee. A real killer up front buries that chance. A real killer in the spaces that Xerxes takes up makes more of the ball than Xerxes does. But that's really what we're left with here. We're left with Xerxes, we're left with Højlund, and we're left with a kid in Cheeto Obi. Because ultimately it comes down to the fact that Man United let down the manager in January, letting go of 2 players and not bringing anyone else in. And then our best player going out injured for the rest of the season a few days later. But man, I mean, there were points in the second half. I thought United were actually going to get a third. You got the impression that this could be one of those games where it's like one of those iconic comebacks, stoppage time, Fergie time winners from United. But in fact, as the game kind of approached a close, it was Everton who really thought at one point they got a penalty. When the ball was bobbling in the box, Ashley Young is running towards it. The referee, It was a shot from outside the box from Idrissa Gueye, who again, Diogo Dalot does a rubbish job of closing down. Lets him get a free shot at the edge of the box. Onana does a horrible job of parrying it away. It flies right back into the danger area. Ashley Young is running towards it, and Maguire and De Ligt, instead of positioning themselves so that they can immediately kind of jump on the loose ball, are trying to pull back Ashley Young. And now, this is the moment of contention here. Ashley Young falls to the ground, the referee gives a penalty. On VAR, the referee deems that It's not a foul. Now, I'm caught in two minds about this because I do think Ashley Young makes a meal out of that. And look, maybe not so much the last few years, but I watched Ashley Young his entire career. He had a reputation for this that it was very difficult for him to shake off. He was known in England as a prolific diver. I think the last few years he's matured, but in my opinion, he makes a massive meal out of that. He is literally diving to the ground. Is there contact? That's the problem. I think there is. I think they are grabbing him. And just because he makes the most out of it doesn't mean that they weren't kind of pulling him back. I think ultimately the way you have to look at this is VAR is supposed to kind of correct clear and obvious errors. Do I think that was a clear and obvious error? Guys, I don't. I think we got away with it today. I think we massively got away with it today. And yeah, the little comeback is fun. I didn't even mention the Ugarte shot, the volley on his left foot. I couldn't believe it. Terrific goal. He was basically blowing smoke out of his ass in the last 5 minutes. He covered so much ground today, Ugarte. He's basically playing right wing at times. It was a fun comeback. It stirred some emotions. But ultimately, guys, we've gotten away with it today. We've caught life today. Even if we had won today, we would have caught life. And I just don't see a light at the end of the tunnel for Man United and for Ruben Amorim. I'm so serious. Like, we play Ipswich next. I'm not confident we're going to win that game. I'm not confident any game Man United enters. And I don't think I'm being negative by saying that. Every game we play, it's a dogfight. Every game we play, the opposition looks fully capable of beating us. Why would that change against Ipswich? That'll be basically the return fixture of Ruben Amorim's first leg, or his first game in charge. Let's see how much he's kind of learned about the squad. Let's see how much he's kind of grown as a Man United manager. I'm not too confident. I don't know how this season ends, but truthfully, I think if it wasn't for how much it would cost to fire him, I think Man United would be deeply considering it. Now, that doesn't mean I think it's the right decision. That also doesn't mean I think Ruben Amorim is completely faultless. But we know how this business goes, guys. It's a results-based business. We all know that's how the game is played. And if Man United don't win enough games, and we continue to sink deeper down the table, and teams like Everton begin leapfrogging us, teams like Wolves maybe start leapfrogging us, Spurs have leapfrogged us, West Ham, who are we waiting for? Leicester, Southampton, and Ipswich. We might just be fortunate enough that those guys will take care of themselves. But every single game for Man United, it gets darker and darker and darker and darker. I'm worried for the manager's future. And I'm worried for this club's future because today we've gotten away with it. I think you guys know just as well as I do that going forward, we will not get as lucky. As a football club, guys, honestly, I think we're finished. I seriously think we're finished. I seriously don't see how we get out of this from a financial point of view, from a quality point of view, from a mentality point of view, from a debt point of view. I think Man United are finished for the foreseeable future. I think they're finished. I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love for something to just click with this group, click with this club. But wow, man, I watched David Moyes today, a guy who failed at our club. He failed as a Man United manager. He took a group of players that finished first and brought them down to 7th. And at that point in time, I never thought it would get worse. What is it? Almost 10 years later, it's worse. And we're suffering to the same manager that we deem not good enough for us. When does it end? When does it end?